as you know, books are set for months what the publication date is going to be. We actually finished the manuscript in January. It was set for a March 10th publication, which happens to be Trisha's birthday, by the way. The next day, the WHO declared it a pandemic. A 12-city book tour, we were going to expand that out to 16, got canceled. Everything that could went virtual. Some things, it was too new in the virtual world. So the Harvard bookstore, some others just couldn't even reset themselves as virtual. But there is also little doubt that I did not get, after having discussions with producers at some national shows, those producers will remain unnamed, a segment on the show. And it is no coincidence that on some of those shows, pharma is big pharma, pharmaceutical companies are 50 to 60% of the advertising dollars if you happen to watch that show on a weekly basis. It may be targeting a baby boom generation, an older generation. It's all pharma ads. And they didn't want somebody on who was necessarily excoriating pharma. They also, and I found this very quickly, when the pandemic was rolling out, I said to a reporter from The Intercept very early on that COVID-19 is a once-in-a-lifetime business opportunity for big pharma. Now, that's a cold calculus. I understand that. I don't mean to say they're sitting around a table and celebrating the fact that the pandemic arrived, but they know it's a multi-billion-dollar potential revenue stream for a handful of companies developing therapeutics and eventually a vaccine, and it's proven to be just that. What has happened is I got pushback for that. I had producers on shows, radio and television, say to me, hey, Posner, you know what? Everyone's looking for a vaccine now. Everyone wants an end to this. And you're sort of the negative guy saying, watch the profits. Make sure they don't make too much money on it. They don't price gouge. As a matter of fact, Bret Stephens, who was the sort of conservative columnist in the New York Times op-ed page, wrote a piece in which he criticized a position I had about Gilead's remdesivir, in which I challenged them for overcharging and trying to sneak it in under a thing called orphan drugs, where they get these benefits they didn't deserve. He said, just as there are no atheists in foxholes during a war, there should be no pharma haters during a pandemic. And the New York Times, to their credit, let me publish a letter. I did an op-ed for them at one point about the vaccine proceedings with Purdue Pharma, but they let me publish a letter answering him saying, you know what, this isn't pharma hating. This is just saying we can chew gum and walk at the same time. Why can't we pursue therapeutics and a vaccine for COVID as aggressively as possible, and at the same time make sure the pharmaceutical companies don't follow what their DNA is that I set out in the book, which is to price gouge every time they have the leverage. They did it in 1976 during the swine flu epidemic. I have a chapter on that. They were doing the same thing now, and why we can't hold them to task during the middle of this pandemic is beyond me.